Hello again, everyone. I'm Dr. George Simon, and welcome to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we've been in for some time now, and that affects every aspect of our lives. In fact, there are no problems that we face that you can't trace directly to the character problem. Character is that aspect of ourselves, that part of our personality that reflects how well we have integrated norms and values that make us people of integrity. It reflects our level of conscientiousness, the evolution of our conscience, how sound it is, how ethical we behave. And unfortunately, for too many years now, a classic vicious cycle has been raging, whereby more and more folks who are to one degree or another character impaired populate cultures. And when that happens, social institutions, norms, traditions, systems, etc., all designed to help preserve and promote character, erode. And when that happens, more and more character-impaired people appear on the scene. It's a classic vicious cycle. And it has to come to an end if we're to make it to the next stage in our personal and collective evolutions. I'm hopeful, therefore, and it's because I'm hopeful that I wrote my latest book, Essentials for the Journey, Embracing and Living what I call the 10 Commandments of Character. Timeless principles, proven axioms that I first introduced in my book, Character Disturbance, the Phenomenon of Our Age, and that I explore in depth in my latest book, and talk about on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. Today, I want to talk about an aspect of character that has to do with a healthy ego. We need our egos to operate in the world. Our ego has a function. It observes how the world works, or at least how we perceive it works. It takes into account those things that have helped us prosper, as well as those things that have traumatized us and held us back. And it helps us navigate, sometimes by building defenses, sometimes by adopting strategies. But it's always meant to help us get by in this less than perfect world of ours. But it can get horribly out of balance in a number of ways. And I have an article about that on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. posted just today. But I want to talk just a little bit more about ego and what a healthy, balanced ego looks like, because last week I talked about those individuals among us, those relatively heartless, fearless, dominance seekers who feel entitled to govern us all, to set all the rules, not just for themselves, but for everyone, who just know, don't just believe, but just know in their heart that everything would be well if they had their way. These very strong, inflated egos that have caused so much trouble throughout history. True, in certain times, such individuals have actually gotten us through some very rough spots. We probably wouldn't even be here today were it not for them. But in a civilized world, in an increasingly complex and interconnected world, such individuals are only dangerous. Because for them, the only thing that matters is having their way, being on top, in control, dominating, and silencing all dissent. You have value in their eyes only when you kowtow to their demands and serve their desires. That's your only value, and you have no value whatsoever should you challenge or question. They are truly legends in their own minds. And contrary to years and years of false belief, contrary to that, these individuals are not necessarily self-doubting inside or underneath, or insecure, or impaired in their sense of self. Quite the contrary. Most of these folks have had their whims overly indulged, came to see themselves as special early on, and because they have largely been so successful in amassing power and influence, they have every reason to believe that they are all that. Now, I said last week that there's enough shame to go around. Shame on them for being so heartless. These heartless predators and dominators among us always do us harm. But I mentioned that there's enough shame to go around because the shame on us is that because these folks will purport to serve our needs, many times we afford them power. We confer upon them the reins of power. That's on us. And within political spheres these days, unfortunately, all too many times, folks on both sides of the various political arguments and persuasions will say, yes, I know so-and-so is pretty much a cad, but, and therein lies the problem. But I have confidence that they will serve my agenda and serve it well. And that's what matters. And that is precisely why we're in the mess that we're in. And that is precisely why the divide only grows. We neither expect nor demand character, and it's coming back to haunt us severely, because character matters, whether you acknowledge that it matters or not, or whether you admit that it matters or not, it matters. It matters what kind of person has access to a nuclear arsenal. It matters what kind of person is conducting negotiation. It matters what kind of person is helping you raise your children. It matters what kind of person is teaching your children. It matters what kind of person you want to walk through life with. It matters what kind of person is going to provide you with mentoring and guidance to help you through your life. Character always has, always will matter regardless of how you view its importance. There are some things that are simply true. They have stood the test of time. And character is one of those things. So I oftentimes sound like a broken record, hammering the same point over and over and over again. Perhaps you're tired of hearing it. That won't stop me, however. Why? Because our present course is unsustainable and I care. I want to be a part of a solution. I'm not so grandiose as to think I have all the answers or that what I do will fix anything, but I want sincerely to be part of a solution instead of part of a perpetuation of a huge problem. So that's my purpose. That's the whole point of my work. I seek to bring some healing and rationality and sense and integrity back to relationships and to the social order at large. And that's why I've written my books, put out the articles that I do, grant the interviews that I do, and the consultations that I do. It's all centered around one thing: whatever I can do to promote the importance of character again and to help folks develop it. So that's what I've been doing and what I will continue to do. What can you do? Well, you can make character matter again to yourself. You can hold yourself and others to account. You can devote time and attention to your own character development, honestly and faithfully, reviewing your progress at times. The commandments that I outline in my book, Essentials for the Journey, are the guidelines for that. They'll help with that task. The other thing you can do is hold others to account. And this is where it gets a little complicated. There is a way to confront and stand up to the disease of our time in a loving, benign manner. You don't have to be hateful. After all, love is really about wanting the best for yourself and others. It's about caring about human welfare. And as I mentioned before, our present course is unsustainable. So the loving thing to do is to work to make ourselves the best versions of ourselves, the best that we can be, and to assist and encourage others in doing the same thing. But we have to be able to benignly and lovingly hold ourselves and each other to account. There are certain tactics that I outline in my book, In Sheep's Clothing. Tactics that we often in the past misunderstood. We thought of them as unconscious behaviors, and we thought of them primarily as defenses. But they're really resistance tactics, very active, conscious, deliberate ways to resist the hard work that it is to forge decent character. And I outline the major ones in my book, and I explain how to confront them and how to respond to them. So when you see someone trying to manipulate you, trying, for example, to make excuses for something that you've tried to call them on that is really hurtful or destructive, and then they offer what seems to be a rational excuse for it. Well, when a behavior is destructive, there is no excuse for it. And it behooves us to point that out. And there's a way to do that. There's a way to hold ourselves and each other to account. There's also a way to reinforce or affirm someone who's genuinely trying to accept responsibility and to course correct and to do better next time. Not only to do better next time, but to do better in the present moment. To stop the excuse making, to quit blaming others, to acknowledge a mistake, and not only to promise to correct it, but to demonstrate with behavior one's commitment to correct it. We're all in this together. And it's precisely because we've given a pass to so much, because our selfish needs and desires appear to dictate everything that we say and do, as opposed to letting our principles guide us, principles that we have taken seriously and taken to heart, and that matter to us. That's what character is ultimately all about. And it will be restored to us individually and collectively when we make the decision to make it matter again. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. George Simon. See you next time on another edition of the new Character Matters. And please avail yourself of the articles on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com and of my books readily available to you on Amazon. People keep asking me about the audio version of the latest book, Essentials for the Journey. I don't have an announcement for you yet. It may be at least another couple of months before I do, but believe me, we are working on it. So until the next time, once again, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. George Simon. Take care.